of Assembly Bill 1264, and honored to be joined today by leading public health advocates, doctors, farmers, teachers, and chefs in support of this effort. And I'm going to provide some introductory remarks today. I'm then going to turn it over to a number of the distinguished speakers that we have here today. And then at the end, we'll open it up to questions both for those of you in the room, and also we have folks online using the Zoom chat function. And so afterwards, you can go ahead and put your questions into Zoom, and Noah here is going to ask them of us. So welcome to our Back to School press conference. Students around the state are returning to school. That includes my three little boys. I'm very blessed to have three sons who started elementary school last week, a fourth grader, a second grader, and my little guy started kindergarten. So this work that we are doing here is very personal to me. And as students are going back to school, and as the legislature has returned to session yesterday for our critical final month of the legislative session, we felt that it was an appropriate moment to provide an update on some notable developments related to Assembly Bill 1264, and also to talk about the path forward. And as a reminder, and hopefully all of you know, AB 1264 is a historic, first-in-the-nation bipartisan legislation that would phase out the most dangerous ultra-processed foods from California schools. This bill is based on a common-sense premise that our schools should not be serving students products that are filled with dangerous additives that can harm their physical or mental health or interfere with their ability to learn. As a parent and as a lawmaker, I believe that our kids deserve real, healthy, nutritious foods that will support their growing minds and bodies. We are very proud of the work that we have done with Assembly Bill 1264, and we are now facing a critical vote in the Senate Appropriations Committee next week. And to be blunt, this is a do or die moment for this bill. But we are also proud to share some important developments as we enter that moment. Following extensive conversations and negotiations, we are proud to announce that key agricultural stakeholders, including the California Fresh Fruit Association, are now officially in support of the bill. And many other stakeholders who expressed concerns have officially removed their opposition based on recent amendments. And I want to thank all of them for entering into very thoughtful conversations with us. We have worked hard to sharpen and refine the definitions of this bill so we don't inadvertently capture the healthy foods that we want our kids to be eating. As I have said from the beginning, the fresh fruits and vegetables that we grow here in California, our agriculture, is the solution. It is not the problem. And so we are very excited by this new support, and we believe that it provides us with important momentum as we are heading into the Appropriations Committee vote next week. To put it differently, we are thrilled that California farmers are joining our movement. They are joining forces with the American Academy of Pediatrics, the California Federation of Teachers, the California State PTA, Stanford Medicine's Children's Health, and dozens of school districts and nonprofits around the state who are urging California to make history by passing this bill. We are proud of the broad, diverse, bipartisan, statewide coalition that we have built to bring our message to Sacramento. Taking a step back, we also wanted to share some notable observations as we enter into this final month of the legislative session. I think it's important for folks to understand that California stands on the precipice of making history. As we understand it, if passed, this bill would provide the first ever statutory definition of what constitutes an ultra-processed food. We believe this will be the first ever definition anywhere in the globe. And so while our goal here, our primary goal, is to protect kids and families in California, we understand that this effort could have national and international impacts. We understand that this is a high-stakes moment for this movement, and that's why we have worked so hard with so many different stakeholders to make sure that we get this right. I also think it's important to note that Republicans and Democrats are joining forces to protect kids. This is a moment of hyper-partisanship. We're going to have a very partisan debate here over the next couple days here in the state capitol. But Democrats and Republicans have decided on this issue they are going to put aside their differences and prioritize our kids' health. And that actually makes sense for a lot of reasons. First, the idea of protecting kids is common sense. It should not be partisan. The idea that we want to protect our kids from dangerous chemical additives, the idea that we want our kids to eat healthy, nutritious food, that is not a partisan idea. That is a common sense idea. And we also believe that that bipartisanship reflects the strong bipartisan support among the public. I had the opportunity this summer to go speak at a conference in Chicago hosted by the Wall Street Journal talking about food. And I was able to interact with some folks who had done research on public opinion as it relates to the issue of ultra-processed foods. And what was remarkable is how overwhelming the support was among both Democrats and Republicans. And I have to say, I think it's because of parents. Parents intuitively understand that we need to take these steps to protect our kids. And so we are seeing north of 70% of Democrats and Republicans in agreement that the government needs to do more to regulate ultra-processed foods. We're also proud that this continues California's tradition of bold leadership. As many of you are aware, there are lots of conversations right now in Washington, D.C. about these issues. There are lots of folks that are Washington that are talking, that are debating hypotheticals. But in California, we're doing what we've always done. We are leading with decisive action. We are proud that California has helped to change the national conversation around food safety and school nutrition, and we are proud that more than 20 other states have followed California's lead in introducing some of the legislation that we have previously passed on this. So we see this as an important moment to continue California's national leadership on food safety and on school nutrition. And let me say a little bit about our approach here. We believe that we have found a winning combination here in California. And we talk often about the three legs of the stool of our approach here: bipartisan, common sense, and science-based. And we are deeply rooted in science and research. And that is what distinguishes our approach here from the approach of some other folks who have talked about these issues. We believe in evidence, we believe in data, we believe in research, and we believe in listening to the public health professionals. And that's why we are so honored that so many of the leading scientists and researchers in this area have come out to enthusiastically endorse Assembly Bill 1264. And we are proud to have the support of so many doctors and nurses and other health professionals. And to speak a little bit about that, it is now my pleasure to introduce, on behalf of the American Academy of Pediatrics, Dr. Ravinda Kara. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today and for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of the American Academy of Pediatrics about the clinical importance of AB 1264. As a pediatrician, we just don't see numbers. We see kids. We see how diet shapes their health, their behavior, and their futures. And we're not just talking about calories, we're talking about consequences. Ultra-processed foods are fueling a surge in chronic conditions among children: obesity, type 2 diabetes, and even mental health challenges like anxiety and depression. These aren't just distant threats. They're showing up in our exam rooms. They're showing up in my exam rooms almost every day. The science is clear. Studies published in The Lancet show a 50% increase in cardiovascular disease among people who consume the most ultra-processed foods. And data from the CDC and NIH confirm that even short-term exposure can lead to overeating, weight gain, and behavioral issues, especially in school-aged children. Yet today, nearly 2/3 of calories our children consume are coming from these products. Many also serve in our school cafeterias, places that should nourish children and not expose them to preventable harm. AB 1264 offers a thoughtful, phased solution. It defines ultra-processed foods, directs the state to identify the worst offenders, and gives schools time to remove them. This approach aligns with the American Academy of Pediatrics. The core message is children deserve access to real, nutritious foods that support their physical, emotional, and cognitive development. Should schools be safe havens, but they shouldn't be a source of chronic disease? Let's give our kids the healthy foundation they deserve. Before I end, I'd like to give my heartfelt thanks to Assemblymember Gabriel for his leadership and unwavering commitment to children's health. His work on this bill reflects the values we all share, that every child deserves a fair shot at a healthy future. Thank you. I'd like to introduce now Miguel Villarreal, National Farm to School Network.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. Good morning, and thank you. I'm also glad to be here as a long-term school food service director for the past 4 decades and now a member of the National Farm to School Network. It really is a good place to be in terms of what we're seeing today. As I've said, I spent 4 decades working in school food service, working directly with children, families, and health advocates and farmers across California and the country, honestly. I've seen firsthand how food we serve in schools directly impacts student health, learning, long-term well-being as well. Not only myself, but also the parents, the teachers, the community at large that were working alongside me trying to solve these issues. And for too long, highly processed foods have dominated school food services. We know that. And it isn't because school food service directors don't want to make changes. It's because, or even care, honestly. It's because the industry pressure, tight district budgets, and outdated policies that don't always make children's nourishment a priority. That's what I learned when I first moved to California, when I found literally a ton of highly processed food being served in the schools. This is back in the early 2000s. So we know that children's health is tied directly to the health of our farming communities. And so how do we do that? We invest in local farms. We invest in fresher foods for our children. Stronger, it's going to create stronger rural communities and more resilient food systems here in California. I too want to thank the assemblymen. I worked many years with different assemblymen and senators who said, we got to help Miguel. We got to help Miguel. But the help never really arrived. Everybody understood the significance of this work. But today, thank you, Assemblyman. We've got him behind this, and I urge everyone to support this. It's been a long time coming, and it's going to help our children. It's going to help our communities. It's going to help our farmers. So we're not only nourishing their stomachs, but we're nourishing their minds and their bodies. So thank you once again on behalf of the National Farm to School Network. And I'd like to next introduce Bernadette Del Cairo from Environmental Working Group.
Thank you, Miguel. Again, my name is Bernadette Del Chiaro. I'm Senior Vice President for California with the Environmental Working Group. We're a national nonprofit organization focused on our environment and protecting our health. I, too, want to thank Assemblymember Gabriel for making our kids' health his top priority. Everyone hopes that our food is safe and healthy. Some people even assume that it is. Assemblymember Gabriel is making that hope a reality. Through prior legislation in 2023 and 2024, banning some of the worst toxic chemicals from our food, Assemblymember Gabriel has ignited a national food safety movement that has touched over 30 state legislatures, the halls of Congress, and the White House. In the last year alone, 6 states, Arizona, Utah, Louisiana, Texas, Virginia, and West Virginia, have followed California's lead in enacting some of the strongest food safety laws in the country. We all know that UPF are dangerous, and thankfully, thanks to Assemblymember Gabriel, we are now making UPFs our top priority. But until we actually set a legal definition of what is an ultra-processed food, we can't begin to regulate it and get it and phase it out of our kids' lunches and breakfasts at school. AB 1264 draws upon a library of scientific evidence linking UPF to known health harms like diabetes, but then ties those to actual policies to phase them out of our kids' food. That is the key. While others are making speeches, Assemblymember Gabriel is making progress. While others are making reports, Assemblymember Gabriel is making real results for California's parents. Thank you again, Assemblymember Gabriel, for making our kids and their health your top priority.
Thank you so much to Bernadette and to all of our speakers, and I appreciate it. And I just want to take a moment and acknowledge everyone behind me. This movement, and I will call it a movement because it truly is a movement to protect our children, to change the way that we eat, to change the way that we protect our kids, is the result of a lot of folks and a lot of people getting into the boat and rowing in the same direction. And so I want to thank Environmental Working Group, Consumer Reports, Eat Real, Food Fight USA, the Office of Kat Taylor, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Chef and Foundation, and so many of the students and the teachers and the physicians and advocates and farmers who have gathered here with us to show the strength of this diverse, broad, bipartisan coalition that we have brought together. I do want to conclude and open up to questions, but let me just offer some final thoughts. In some ways, this effort is very complicated, and in some ways, it's very simple. And it is very complicated because we are trying to do something for the first time. We are trying to provide the first ever statutory definition of what constitutes an ultra-processed food. We're trying to move forward historic, first-in-the-nation legislation that will phase those harmful foods out of schools. And that's complicated, and it's required a lot of engagement with various stakeholders to make sure that we get the details right, to make sure that the bad foods are out of schools and the good, healthy, nutritious foods are in schools so our kids can be nourished in the right way. But in other ways, it's actually very simple, and I think it's very simple, when I put on my hat as a dad of 3 young boys, which is this is about protecting our kids. And every parent I talk to gets this intuitively, and part of the reason that we have been able to move these efforts forward with strong bipartisan support is when I went to my Republican and Democratic colleagues, the parents got it right away. There's a growing awareness in this country that what we feed our kids, what they put in their bodies is so important. And it's so important not just for their physical health, but for their mental health, their emotional well-being, their development. And the parents just get it. And the moms get it right away. I will say that. The moms get it right away. And so we have been able to take what is a very complicated effort to work on it with the support of the scientists and the pediatricians and the teachers and the food school directors and everybody who has expertise. But really, it's a simple thing. Are we going to prioritize the health and safety of our kids, or are we going to prioritize corporate profits? And we have decided that the health of our kids, that the safety of our kids, that what we feed them matters the most. And so this is really an effort about protecting our kids. And so we're very excited that California's farmers, that key agricultural stakeholders have joined our movement. We think that they're a really nice addition to the doctors and the nurses and the teachers and everybody else who has gotten behind this. And we're hopeful that as we face this critical vote next week in the Senate Appropriations Committee, that this additional momentum, this additional validation from those key stakeholders is going to push this bill to the Assembly floor and hopefully all the way to the governor's desk. So thank you to everyone who has joined us today. Thank you to everyone who has done the work to talk to legislators to secure these really strong bipartisan votes that we've had leading up to it. And with that, I will open it up to questions. You want to? Sure.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Forsyth, and I reside in San Diego. I've been with the San Diego Unified School District for about 20 years. I've seen a lot of changes in terms of food that's served to kids, mostly for the better, but still concerned about the ultra-processed foods. So in terms of defining what ultra-processed foods are, is it going to be through a WIHA or what organizations within the state?
Yeah, so we've had a lot of conversations about that, and we're working with very closely with our counterparts in the administration about that, with the governor's office and with other folks. The idea here is really to get all of the different expertise at the table. So to have the state scientists from OWIHA, the bill specifically calls out experts from UC. From the California Department of Public Health, from the Department of Food and Agriculture, to really have everybody come to the table and to make sure that we are having the best possible conversations with the most expertise to make those determinations. And again, to not prejudge the outcome. This will be focused on what does the research say, right? Is there research that links these additives to cancer, to reproductive harm, to developmental issues? And part of the reason I feel so blessed that EWG and Bernadette have opened my eyes to these issues is it really shocked me when I learned how different the United States is than the rest of the world. And I said, this cannot be the case that additives that are not allowed to be included in food in Latin America and in Asia and in all of Europe are somehow allowed in our food here in the United States. And so that is also what this is about, is making sure that our kids have just as much protection as kids in Sweden and Saudi Arabia and South Korea. We don't love our kids any less than they do in those countries, and our kids deserve the same level of protection as kids in other parts of the globe. See if there's any other questions from folks in the room. If not, from reporters in the room. If not, I'm going to see if anybody online has any questions. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Roger Wasson. Market Table Bar podcast, and there's been a lot of interest in this. And I wanted to ask, much of what we produce is processed. It's minimally processed. And you referred to fresh, and I could feel there might be some confusion to people thinking fresh only might preclude having frozen and canned and dried and all these that are minimally processed. I assume that's
Correct. And that actually hits on exactly some of the amendments that we've worked on with stakeholders here. We understand that, and for folks who are not deeply immersed in this, there are different levels, right? There are minimally processed foods, there's processed foods, there's ultra-processed foods, there's working through all this. And so we want to make sure things like canned vegetables and canned fruits can end up on the plate in schools. Those are things that, and there's lots of food out there that is processed, healthy Greek yogurts, other things that I'm proud to serve my kids and that we want our kids to be eating. And so this is about defining the definition of these highly ultra-processed foods that are filled with additives, that are scientifically engineered to contribute to food addiction. Those are the things that we want to phase out from school. And so that is exactly the conversation we've had with not only with the scientists and the researchers, but also with the farmers and with the agriculture industry to make sure that we get that right. And that's why we're so proud of the fact that all of these folks have now said, you know what, we agree with this approach. It's not going to inadvertently sweep in healthy food, and we're going to join the teachers and the doctors and the nurses in getting behind this effort. Yeah.
Our first question is going to be from Kat with the SF Chronicle. She asks, what is the legal definition of ultra-processed foods as written in the bill?
So we can provide that, and we can certainly mail it to folks who are interested. What it does is it sets out some criteria that people look for that is based on scientific research that has to do both with specific additives, FDA technical effects, and then also being high in sugar, fat, and salt. And so looking at those two things, and then what we do in the bill, and I maybe should have explained this a little bit more, we define what an ultra-processed food is, but then we ask our state scientists and our state research to identify a subset of ultra-processed foods that are the worst of the worst that we want to phase out of schools, understanding that the term ultra-processed food is probably too broad in terms of the food that we want to remove from schools. So we have what we think is a good, strong scientific definition based on the latest scientific research of what would constitute an ultra-processed food. It's a highly technical term and really goes based on a lot of FDA guidance and the latest scientific research. But then from there, provides the scientist, the state scientist, the opportunity to look at it and say which of those foods that fall into the bucket of ultra-processed will be phased out from our schools.
Great. Next question is going to be from Gia over at the Mercury News. She asks, do you have any support from incumbent corporate producers of UPF who might want to start a conversion at scale on the use of this movement?
That is a great question, and I think builds on what we have seen to be some of the most encouraging developments lately. Some of you may have seen that some of the biggest national producers have started to voluntarily take steps to remove harmful additives, remove synthetic food dyes. So Bernadette talked about the work that we have done in the last 2 years. So California last year, I authored a bill that the governor signed into law to phase out a number of synthetic food dyes from school foods where there was really strong evidence that they contributed to behavioral issues in children, to developmental issues in children. And now we're seeing just in the last couple of days, some of the biggest names in corporate America saying they are going to take it upon themselves to do that. So it's nice to see that some folks are doing the right thing and that they're getting in the game. And we hope that there's going to be more of that. And there's been a lot of people in Washington that have encouraged companies to do that. But we also understand that you need the mechanisms of law, of legislation and regulation to really to push industry in the right direction. And so we're hopeful, and I'm hopeful that there are going to be companies out there that want to do the right thing. And one of the things that I have said to stakeholders who've come in opposition to this bill, some of these big corporate food producers, is you have an opportunity here. You have an opportunity here to earn the loyalty and trust of your customers, to earn the loyalty and trust of parents. Just do the right thing. And it's not a difficult thing. Part of the reason we know that these companies can do it is because they have stronger food safety laws in other countries. So all they need to do is say, switch to the recipe that you use in France, switch to the recipe that you use in Switzerland, switch to the recipe that you use in Japan or South Korea or Peru, because we want our kids to be protected from the same additives. And so we're hopeful that as we gain momentum here, as the work we do in California, hopefully this bill becomes law, hopefully it continues to inspire change in other states, that some of these folks in the business community will see an opportunity to gain the trust of parents, to gain the trust of young people, and start to make some of these changes voluntarily, because they can still make money and they can do right by our kids. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you so much for everything you shared. California is one of the largest drug providers
It's a great question, and I want to thank Nora, I see her from Eat Real, who has really, I think, so beautifully and articulately helped folks to understand that California is going to serve north of 1 billion school meals this year. So one of the most direct and impactful ways that we can impact student health is to change what we serve in our public schools. And kids in schools don't have the opportunity to choose what they want to eat, right? I mean, you send your kids to school, and if they're going to get, it's whatever they're serving that day. And so we as grown-ups, we as the adults have the responsibility to make the choices for them to make sure that they are protected. So a couple of things are at stake here. One is what is going to be the impact on those young people, first and foremost? What is going to be the impact on my kids, on all kids in the state of California? And we know, and we've talked about this, that while this affects all kids, and you've heard from Dr. Chiara about some of the statistics here, the research is super clear about the fact that close to 40% of American kids are pre-diabetic, about the rise in all of this disease that is chronic disease that is so directly linked to ultra-processed foods, and the research and the science here is really tight. So part of it is the health and safety of our kids, but I'll also add that I think it makes a real difference for young people who might be struggling in other ways. And so one of the issues that was motivating for me around the synthetic food dyes is the state scientists put out a report that said that there was evidence linking it to behavioral issues, particularly with young people with ADHD. And as someone who grew up and struggled with ADHD as a kid, watching one of my sons struggle with this idea that we're investing all of this love and energy into our kids to help them with these challenges, and maybe then they're eating some crap at lunch that's just totally undoing all that, is heartbreaking. And it's not right for those kids. It is not right by those kids, and we've heard that from teachers. We've heard that from parents. We've actually had parents across the country who have reached out to us and said, thank you for what you're doing in California. We see this issue with our son or daughter who has ADHD. We're so glad you're doing this, and we hope our state follows. So this is something that is going to broadly affect all kids in every demographic across the state. There are some real equity implications here because we know that there are people from underserved communities that are especially dependent on school meals. But we also know that it's going to really make a big difference for some of our young people who are struggling with those challenges. And so for that reason, we think this is, the stakes are really high here. Okay, well, thank you everybody for joining us. We appreciate your attention, and we will hope for a good outcome in the Appropriations Committee next week. Thank you very much. Yeah, let's do a picture. Wait. Let's do a quick pic.